Hello, my name is Katherine Jackson. I'm the lead designer of Sundance, and in Sundance, invoke the power of the sun to dash and jump through obstacles on your journey to the sky. But make sure to stop by and dance with some strangers.
Hello everybody, my name is Jacob Meddings and I was our producer on this project. And for our sprint statistics here, we had 45 user stories assigned during the sprint. A total of 49 of those were points. Then 32 user stories were then moved into verify and then complete. And out of those 32, 36 of them were points, which then left 7 user stories remaining assigned and not moved, and then 6 user stories remaining in progress. And if we take a look at our burn down chart, we're right on line with our ideal basically, and we were so close to finishing. We had a few points left in our backlog that we were unable to get to.
There are three main issues I encountered. This project was far too big for a team of 6, and there's originally a lot of lack of communication at the beginning, and our team was mostly composed of programmers, which wasn't that great for a game that was designed mainly for aesthetics. And I also spent too much time on a fully custom NPC pipeline, which was the first time I had ever done that. But in the end, it looked good. We had cohesive art direction, good visuals, and great music. And our communication did return halfway through. They were requiring in-person meetings instead of online, which was a step in the right directions, and I also took the first steps into rigging animation. It's a new pipeline I'd learned. And because of this, I also know how to more efficiently anticipate a good amount of work for animators and riggers inside the art pipeline. And don't skip communication. This is cliche, but it's entirely necessary. It hurts teams. And when in doubt, scope for less, but always make sure you have more in your backlog and never become too attached to features.
Some of the things I would say went wrong during this were definitely our group meetings because we didn't really have them in the first half and they weren't in person. It was a big disaster, led to a lot of miscommunication and misunderstandings from a lot of people, myself included, as well as my card/user story creations. The as a player, so that format, I was not very good at writing stuff for that, so it led to a lot of issues. Some of the things that I would say went right were definitely card descriptions. I would write big descriptions and make sure everybody knew what the cards really meant, because in the descriptions, I'm not really limited to the as a player, so that I would have that part as well as the description so that everybody knew what was going on. As well as our team morale, that was amazing. We never let anything get us down, really. We were always excited about the project and always ready to keep going and make it better. As well as our group meetings during the second half. Once we made group meeting times, made them in person, everything was better. We never really had any issues. Some things I did learn, being a producer is hard. Managing people is very difficult, and this was a big learning experience for me, as well as why check-ins are so important. Having them staying informed on everything that's going on is a very important part in being a producer in a leadership role, as well as in-person meetings. Those really showed me how important they are as I got a first-hand experience of having them and not having them in the same project, and how much better we did with having them versus without having them.
Hello, my name is Gabriel, and I'm the level designer of Sundance. First, I will be talking about what went wrong. The first initial thing that I noticed was the scope of the game. Design resulted in seemingly working on 2 different separate titles simultaneously, so our leads ultimately decided to cut additional features as well as a few future levels that I was working on. Then, next thing I noticed was the vision of the game wasn't too clear. The core idea was pretty easy to understand, and our designer gave us lots of details for us to grasp it, but I struggled to paint a picture in my head. And lastly, we had a bit of miscommunication, so our group didn't adhere to our desired in-person meeting time and our productivity fell short because of it. But after the second or so sprint, we switched to in-person, and it was rough at first, but we eventually got the better of it. So what went right So all of our work actually came out in a really timely fashion. We were never really blocked throughout every single sprint, and we were really good as a team at completing tasks and proceeding to the next steps. Communication was also really good. We were very helpful and cooperative with one another. We met our deadlines. We collaborated in harmony. Every single team member was helpful, assisting, and provided good tips and good ideas. And lastly, the level creation worked out pretty well for me. I annotated the maps and blockouts. That really helped me a lot, especially for the scope of the later levels. And I was able to also iterate and turn in the feedback that my designer had given me for some levels, and it worked out really well for me. Also, to have a better base knowledge of the vision from the start would actually help a lot immensely next time for me, because if I could properly understand the designer's vision before the first sprint rather than design semi-blindly based on my understanding of the concept, that would help me immensely from the get-go.
Hello everyone, my name is Angelo and I was one of the programmers on this project. Overall, this project had lots of ups and downs, and I learned a lot from this experience. One of the biggest things that went wrong was communication. We didn't fully talk through our design ideas at the start, and because of that, for a large part of the project, we were basically working on 2 different games. Scope was also an issue, and finding times to meet was tough, since not everyone could meet at the same time. That being said, a lot of things did go right. I personally switched our old input system to now work with the Unity's new input system, keeping all of our logic exactly the same. This was a big one. I also helped fix a major bug where our dash mechanic was causing players to clip into walls, which completely broke the game. I switched our frame-based movement to now rely on physics-based movement, which was a huge win. Most importantly, we worked through problems together as a team and found solutions collectively. From this project, I learned to appreciate smaller victories. Even getting small things to work felt really rewarding. I also learned to not be afraid to ask for help, because programming can be frustrating and challenging at times. And overall, just meeting in person helped a lot, since we could split up the workload better, and when someone was stuck, we were able to help each other out. Relying on each other through the tough parts made a big difference, and it's something that I'll definitely take into different projects in the future. Thank you.
I'm Yasmine Arteaga, and I was a 3D artist and Flex for Sundance. As for what went wrong, one of the major things was the cloak. I decided to use a cloth component in Unity, but it made it incompatible with the animations for Umbra, so we ended up having to scrap it before we could fix it. Also, as a group, we had a sort of slow start to our development, which means we had to catch up on our work later on, in later sprints. Also, communication was not as strong early in the sprints as it was later on. Sometimes things would be overwritten in GitHub, or people weren't sure where everybody was in the project. But as for what went right, I attempted so many new things in Maya successfully for the first time being a 3D artist for a group. I made Umbra's model, I rigged with the model and cloak, as well as editing animations from Mixamo. I also made sure to ask for help whenever it was needed, since this was unfamiliar territory for me. As for what I learned quite a bit, especially about animating, rigging, and character modeling in Maya. I wouldn't have known how to do it if I didn't take the chance and do research, which is also super important. If you're diving into something unfamiliar, it's so important to look into what you're doing and try to find tutorials and different methods on how to accomplish it.
Hi, I'm Patrick. I'm a programmer for Sundance. I'm here to present my slides. So what went wrong? Meeting logistics were not great. It was difficult with 6 people to schedule time outside of class to meet every week. I had overwritten commits, so sometimes I would commit things to the GitHub and someone else would have overwritten my feature and I would have to go back and fix that. There was also a problem with clarity of vision on my end. I probably should have clarified some things about the vision ahead of time in order to better optimize the features that I would develop later. In terms of what went right, the opportunity to work on rhythm game mechanics was very exciting to me. This was something I've been excited about for years. We branched further into unknown territory with file parsing. It was also new to me and it was very hefty. We dove further into Unity events, so I used things like on-scene loaded for triggering scripts on singleton functions, and then also adding a hook for interaction mechanics. In terms of what I learned, communication is really important. This is kind of a staple for any sort of coding project for sure, but it just is. It's just incredibly important. And don't be afraid to take on tasks outside of my comfort zone. It's something that I was a little worried about doing, but it turned out great, and I was really happy I did.
Hello there, Katherine again. In the future, we will be initiating communication early on to avoid the problems we have currently, and to ensure all team members are fully committed to the project, to avoid diverting attention, and also having full 2-hour-long meetings at the beginning to ensure maximum understanding. What we would do again in the future is to have a strong design document and concepts ready first and foremost to get art direction and technical direction on the go. And to have in-person meetings as walking around a desk and talking to each other is far simpler.